Hello, and welcome to the Decking Awesome podcast. My name is Owen, and I'm joined by the awesome Brian and Ciara.
Hello.
Hello.
Today we are debating player elimination. Does player elimination reduce fun? We will be discussing what games work perfectly with elimination, and when does it fail to hit the mark. Arguing for player elimination is Brian, who's willing to resolve anything via Battle Royale. Arguing against player elimination is Ciara, who would much prefer to resolve this over a Royale with cheese.
Royale with cheese. Actually, that sounds good. I want to change sides. Can I get a Royale with cheese?
Player elimination is a tricky mechanic because so many players have bad memories from getting eliminated in a long game. Then they have to wait until it ends or continue playing in a decreased role. That doesn't allow them to win. I think we can learn from these experiences and find out what aspects are best to have. To open up, we have Ciara to say why player elimination ruins fun.
Well, personally, I get really bored really quickly. And I think that the element of having nothing to do in a game is really frustrating. So if you know you're going to lose or you know you're dead and you're out and everyone else is still playing, I just don't care. I like to be involved, and when I'm not involved, I really feel like it's just less of a game. I don't play board games to sit around and do nothing. I like to be involved. So I think that makes it pretty tough and reduces the fun. I often think it's too easy to pick a player to bully in these games. Like, it's fine if your group dynamic is good, but even in a nice group, there's always still a little bit of like people who pick on people, and like, it's all good fun, but it happens so often. So there's always like people you're going to accuse first or people you're going to give out about. And sometimes it just makes it very hard to win because like certain people in the group would be like totally overanalyzed compared to everyone else in the group. That happens. It's fine when you're making jokes about it because that's always good fun. But in groups where you don't have that like laughing, lighthearted thing, or you have really highly competitive people, that then just really ruins it. It just makes it feel like... It makes it feel closer to bullying than it is to just like playing competitively. So I think that is a real big problem. And then when people get too competitive because they don't want to lose or they don't want to die or they don't want to be eliminated, that extra pressure can mean that they play really competitively, and then the chatter stops because people are like obsessing about what they have to do so that they don't lose. So they really, really focused, and it's not as good fun. The talk and the chit chat is like everything about war games. So they're my three reasons why I think that player elimination reduces the fun.
Yeah, they're good points. Like boredom, especially when you're just eliminated, this can be kind of tricky. Bullying and everyone kind of has a bias. That's what they're doing. Yeah, and then player elimination just create a more competitive environment. Yeah.
For the listeners out there, if you've never played a game with Ciara and Owen, they immediately accuse each other in every game we play, every single time. I don't know if that's a sibling thing or if that's just, for talk of bullying and accusing someone, always accusing the other. Every time without fail. If they don't accuse each other, they're both the bad guys.
Yeah, well, like some games don't allow you to bias against your sister, and when they do, that gets activated pretty quickly.
You, when you're playing with your sisters, also bias.
They're guilty as hell.
Accuse them so quick.
All right, and then let's pass it over to Brian to open up on why player elimination is fun as balls.
Didn't think you'd read that. Thought I'd sneak that one in. Player elimination is fun as balls. Thank you, Owen. I think player elimination has moved on a lot from what it used to be. But opinion on it hasn't really. Old games like Monopoly and Risk, you'd sit down for a whole day's worth of playing, and if it didn't go well for you at the start, you get knocked out, and then you've got nothing to do for hours on end while your friends keep playing this game and they're having great fun, and you can either sit and watch them or you can, just leave and do something yourself. But that doesn't happen anymore. Like the same way the board game community and types of games have evolved hugely since then, so has player elimination. So now you have games where, they play shorter. So if you're knocked out, you don't have that long to wait until you're back into it. Other games have like a keep playing mechanic. So you get knocked out and you can't win the game anymore, but you can still influence the game. So you can still come in and do a few actions. You still get to take your turn. So you're not out of the game, but you just no longer can win, but you can still play. You can still have fun. You can still mess with people. You can still get that person who knocked you out. That's always really good fun, that you're not just sitting there staring for ages. Then you have games like Social Deception and Push Your Luck games where, you've got a new kind of flair on the elimination mechanic. So, even if you're knocked out, you're still involved, you're still invested, you still want to know what's happening, what's going on. Were your hunches right the whole way through? Have you been screaming from the start that person was the bad guy? But, I nearly find it better than, if you're playing a game like a Euro game that just goes on forever and you're losing, there's absolutely no way you're coming anywhere but last, but you're still stuck there just playing and playing and playing. I'd rather just get knocked out than, come to the end and go, let's tally up the scores. Oh, Brian lost by 200 points. In a game that only goes up to 50, it's really devastating.
Talking about Monopoly slightly there.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Back in the old days, player elimination was pretty brutal, but it has evolved a lot since then. And some game types like social deception mean you don't really need to add in rules to counter it because people can just sit there and watch. Interesting opening statements. But who will win the debate?
Me.
Okay.
Good game. Thanks, guys.
Brian, what is your favorite player elimination board game?
Oh, like I said, I love the social deception games like Werewolf and Coup and Secret Hitler, Resistance, any of them. They're brilliant. But I think when it comes to like player elimination games, sometimes the shorter, simpler ones are better. Like look at Love Letter. Love Letter is a great game. You play so many rounds of it, people get eliminated so quickly, but realistically it's only, a minute or 2 minutes at most before you're back in playing the next round. And now you've kind of seen what people's strategies are, and now you've learned a little bit from it. And if you get knocked out by a bad beat, you're like, oh, damn it, that's unfortunate, but I'll get it next time. So you don't feel like you're out of the game. You just feel like, I've lost this round. Oh, well, what can I do? But like Love Letter is a great game. It's simple, it's classic. It's been remade how many dozens of times? Like it's one of those examples where they've taken away the long wait from player elimination games. So you're not just sitting there doing nothing for hours on end. Now you're out. Okay, I'm back in. Okay, let's go.
Yeah, because I wonder what Love Letter would look like without player elimination. If it would just be whoever has the highest card at the end wins, it would create a very different game. And player elimination is the core of Love Letter.
But I feel like if you had that, it would be just draw a card, who won.
Pretty much, yeah. You'd have that, yeah. Player elimination is so central to Love Letter, but it does create the highest highs and the lowest lows. Lots of times we've been eliminated straight away in Love Letter. Oh. First round eliminations are tough.
Nothing like throwing a guard down as the very first card and going, you've definitely got the prince. And you're like, God damn it.
Straight away.
And that happens way too often. Also with the prince. Like our accusations of you're a prince versus our accusations of you're any other card in the deck have got to be really, really skewed.
That's tricky. That's really tricky to do. It's a tough pill to take. But if you're playing like
so satisfying though.
Obviously, when you're in a board game night, you're playing Love Letter maybe 3 or 4 times, and you also in Love Letter you have to get to a certain amount of points to win. So it's not a one and done thing. You do have the strategy of playing
multiple times. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
you're back in a few minutes, and then off to try again and get eliminated.
I always appreciate when my opponent makes my point for me. Thank you, Kira. This debate is easy.
But you lose over and over and over again on the other side of it.
That's because you're bad at it.
Just getting started. Kira, what is your favorite board game that kind of skirts around the idea of player elimination?
So my answer to this was that I love worker placement games. And I don't really understand why I'm having to skirt around it. But after a debate before this, we had a discussion about what actually is player elimination that skirts around it. So Pandemic Legacy was one of the ones we come up with. As you may know, I'm super obsessed with Pandemic and I make everyone play Pandemic Legacy every time a game comes out. In those games, you can kill off your characters. We obsessively don't. As characters get more and more scars or whatever, or bad things happen to them, we then are very gentle with the characters because we don't really like the other characters. Sometimes we'll change if something very bad happens, but we do get attached to them. So obviously I love Pandemic, so that's probably my favorite. But I do like Betrayal at House on the Hill and Dead of Winter in that I don't so much mind being knocked out because there's such a compelling story and the players are very involved that I'm okay with sitting around to see how it plays out, to see what happens, if we win, if we lose. But that said, if you're losing badly coming into either of those games and I get knocked out, I'm probably going to go off and get sweets and stuff and go to the bathroom, do things, just bits and bobs. But like when they do have a gripping story and when the Betrayal House on the Hill is a is a good betrayal, good scenario, then you do want to hang around and listen a bit. Still not my favorite type of game, though.
Another very pro elimination game.
But I had the answer
with
similar.
caveats. With caveats. Pandemic Legacy, you never actually die, so you're always involved in the game. And then the other one you were talking about, which is Dead of Winter and Betrayal House of the Hill, it gives you the opportunity to get up, make yourself a cup of tea, and do stuff which some games with player elimination doesn't allow you to do. So, it's whether you want to be a spectator or still be part of the game as that kind of small role. So interesting ideas on both of those. Brian, it sounds like you're very pro social deception player elimination, which is very cool. Why does it work well? Is this because players can enjoy themselves spectating the game, or is this something else?
Like, I definitely think with social deception games, it is, even sitting and watching the game, like take Werewolf, for example. If you're playing with a big group, there's, 8, 10 different roles out there. You have different people who are werewolves and stuff like that. And when you're eliminated, you can kind of watch and see everything that's happening. It's really exciting. And you're like, the whole way through the game, before you got eliminated, you're probably going, oh, I think they're a werewolf, and I think they're a werewolf, and oh, that person's definitely a werewolf as well. Or if it's either of you guys, it's just, each other's a werewolf. Gotcha. But even if you do get eliminated, then, you get to find out. You don't have to wait until the end of the game like everyone else does. You get to find out who everyone is, and you get to see stuff in action. You're like, oh, yes, my hunters were right. I knew it. I knew that person was acting shifty, or I knew I heard them moving around, or something like that. And getting to see your hunches played out and getting to see how people are like accusing each other and how people are cleverly throwing each other off the scent and stuff like that is brilliant. It's so fun to watch with the burden of knowledge almost.
One disadvantage of that is if Brian was trying to argue that somebody was the werewolf and he's really adamant about it and no one believes him, and then he finds out he is when he dies, it's really obvious from his face that he was right. And we can all tell who the werewolf is.
I do look very smug when I'm right.
Well, it's interesting because werewolf has that as a mechanic in the game, which is unusual in kind of social deception games. A lot of games have this concept of closing your eyes, and then things happen when your eyes are closed. I think Secret Hitler does it too. Yeah. I can't remember. Or
and Resistance does as well.
Yeah.
Those are kind of cool concepts for this player elimination social deception, because everyone's eyes are closed, and then the players who got eliminated find out who the werewolves are, and they can say, "Oh my god," or they can say, "Oh no, I can't believe it," because everyone's eyes are closed.
Yeah,
they still don't know. So yeah, there is this kind of.
But smugness levels, you can't hide that.
Yeah. So yeah, even as an eliminated player, you can still affect the game. You shouldn't.
You shouldn't.
You'll ruin it for
realistically,
everybody.
you shouldn't.
But all those kind of things as part of Werewolf are exactly what make Werewolf so good.
Yeah.
The double bluffs, the triple bluffs. And having an eliminated player, you just sit there silently and then you see it all play out in front of you. Very cool.
But like that's what some games, like I'm going to keep throwing back to Monopoly and Risk because they're the original player elimination style games. They're tedious to watch. Like, you watch someone build up a big army and then advance through a load of them, and then the next person builds up a big army and advances right back through them. But with social deception games, it's not tedious to watch. It's still exciting. You're still watching accusations. You're still seeing fun things happen. So I think, this is one of those evolutions of the player elimination game or player elimination mechanic that make it more fun, that make it more enjoyable, that aren't just, go do something else. Your friends are busy for the day.
Yeah, I totally agree. Kira, what do you think about social deception games? Can you have a compelling social deception game without player elimination? Is it possible?
So I do think that social deception needs a player elimination. There needs to be some sort of strong, compelling reason to have these arguments. I'm not totally compelled by the genre in general. So I find social deception games themselves, the fact that they need player elimination is probably what annoys me most about them. The fact that you need something to counter. You like even in Love Letter, you gain some points, but like really it's the knocking people out that is the compelling factor in winning that. So I just think it reduces the genre, but I don't think you could have one without the other. Or you could have social deception games without the player elimination.
Yeah, they're kind of integral. Yeah, and at least with the newer versions of games, people seem to join the two at the hip. What about this idea of instead of being eliminated fully from the game, like in Werewolf, where you can go off and have a cup of tea, games where you might just like become a ghost and still affect the game. So I don't know, maybe there's a Werewolf out there, a variant of it where eliminated players can somehow still affect the game. What about something like that?
Like, I mean, you could do something like that. In Werewolf, you could do that as a variant where people vote at the end for who they think the werewolf is, as long as eliminated players keep their eyes closed when everyone else closes their eyes, they could still, in theory, vote on who the werewolf is.
That's true. Do you think you'd still be as invested in the werewolf game if you were eliminated?
Yeah, like I think so, because you can't win because you've essentially been killed, but at the same time, you still want to know if your hunches are right. You still have a gut feeling as to who the wolf is. Maybe you're not able to contribute in the debate anymore. Maybe you are. You can house rule these things, but you can still be right and wrong about who the wolves are and stuff like that. Or if you're an eliminated wolf, maybe you want to throw off the betting or something like that because you're rooting for your team, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I worry about it. There are roles such as Bang has one where there's a sheriff, and that player elimination is if that sheriff gets eliminated, the game ends. So there's important people.
Yeah, but it's that's another clever mechanic on it. If you're one of the deputies or something like that, you have to do your best to protect the sheriff. Everyone knows who the sheriff is, but you have to protect them. So, maybe it's a case of throwing yourself in front of the bullet, or taking out one of the renegades or one of the bandits or something like that, just because they're weak to try and protect the sheriff. It's added an element of twist to it where, obviously the bandits have to be able to win somehow. So they win by killing the sheriff. They don't have to eliminate everyone else. But if they kill the sheriff, they win. But you have to now protect the sheriff. You have to, play the game more strategically. Maybe it means revealing your character a bit, but you still have to do it.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if that game would work if it was about collecting money or something like that.
Yeah.
Whoever has the most money wins. I don't think it would be as compelling. You need the player elimination.
It just feels like the player elimination is just because you need the high stakes.
Yeah. But high stakes is good in those kind of social deception or those kind of fast-paced games where you want something, exciting, something to grasp you, something to make you, struggle to stay alive rather than, just going, oh, well, I'm not getting points. Okay.
But I feel like Bang and King of Tokyo are one of the ones that are the most likely to be knocked out for ages. If you roll well in King of Tokyo and in Bang, if the others haven't lost as much health as you, I guess it comes more into the maybe potentially the picking on somebody sort of area. I don't think King of Tokyo kind of counteracts that, but Bang can definitely be you just go after somebody and then they're gone if you know who they are or you know what their role or is or whatever.
It can come down to as well the time between when the first player was eliminated versus the end of the game. Because you can pick on someone definitely in all these games, but if your goal is to win the game, right afterwards, and your first step is to take this person out. But if there's if you're killing this person right at the start of the game and there's still 30 minutes to go, that's way too difficult for that person to sit around.
Yeah, I think as well, if you have a friend group who are very subject to analysis paralysis and they're sitting around debating everything for hours or trying to consider their move, elimination games are going to, lose you some friends.
Not a great argument, by the way, for player elimination.
I mean,
you might lose friends.
You've made so many of my arguments. I figured I'd give you one back.
I had to.
Yeah, Kira, you mentioned Betrayal on the House of the Hill and Dead of Winter before. It sounds like adventure games use player elimination to kind of add an element of excitement to games, and even Dungeons and Dragons. Do you think player elimination adds to the fun?
No, I actually don't. So I think there are better ways to raise stakes in adventure games. I think the chance of death, if you're invested in a character, is very compelling, but it isn't the only way to get that high stakes feeling. Destroying actions, I think is a quite an interesting one. But if you had a Dungeons and Dragon character, maybe destroying actions is destroying their magic hat or whatever, taking away something can be just as compelling. You losing a character that you created and bonded with, or ruining the game for you, stopping your entire investment in it. So in Dead of Winter, if you have no skin in the game, you can't win. And it also, Dead of Winter, I find, has the problem. It's player elimination, but also there's one player potentially against the rest of them. And if you oust that player or something, that is really unfair. That's properly many against one, destroying that person's fun. And
the old 1v all debate again.
And then they're ousted and they can potentially be eliminated. And then they just, what is the point of them being there? It's fun, sure, for the other people, I guess. But, you know, you have to be cold-hearted.
That trader mechanic in Dead of Winter, you can play with it or
You can
without
play
it.
it without it, yeah. So
Yeah, but if you do play it with it, though, people tend not to get kicked out because you never know really who it is, and because of this bullying. But you're right, though. Maybe that's just our group.
Yeah, I've played it with other people, with a group of people who played Dungeons and Dragons before.
board game cheated on us.
You were,
How
oh no, you
dare
weren't
you.
there.
Yeah.
Yes. I board game cheated.
Board game infidelity. You heard it here first.
And they did pick somebody to accuse.
And kick them out.
Yeah.
Well,
Were they right?
I actually don't remember. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. Well, I was neither the actual person nor the person who got kicked out.
yeah, but maybe that's not fun, but it can create some compelling moments. Like The Walking Dead, if you played those computer games or watched a TV show, it's like ousting someone from the colony is a very difficult thing to do, you know? Very final.
Like I think Dead of Winter, you know, has done it very cleverly that, you know, if you want a bit of social deception in the game, great, leave in the imposter, but it's perfectly playable without it. You know, it's a tough enough game even still without the imposter in it. If you've played the game a lot and you like it and you want to add that kind of quirky element to it, put in the imposter, great. Accuse each other back and forth, distract from the horde of zombies that you're trying to fight off. You know, but you see, that's like a designer making clever use of the elimination mechanic. They're not just eliminating players and having them watch. They give you the option to go, well, look, you know, you don't have to use this.
But does it like make the game better? Should it be there at all? Is it just a waste of space? And does it just enhance the different play styles between players? Like the players who get invested in characters who really feel they're part of the story are going to play less risky than players who are just going to be reckless anyway. So you really polarize that. Oh my God.
Giving yourself real difficult words today, Kira.
I'm tired. I don't know if I can manage this. Oh, let's polar bear these things.
But it just means that like player elimination for people who play, you know, with just abandonment, they're going to still play like that.
I think you're right, though, in the fact that players do play in a different way, especially with some games. You know, this can come down to new players versus old players. Some new players will play recklessly because they don't really get the whole immersion part of Dead of Winter until they play a few games of it. Especially true in things like Dungeons and Dragons, where, you know, if you play with a character for months on end, you're going to get attached to that character. If it's your first session, sure, why not just stroll up to the dragon and axe him in the head?
Poke him with your...
It doesn't really matter. I'll just write up a new character. But you can't.
Like, I mean, but you can. Like, the D&D is a classic example that has player elimination, and, you know, you can take players out of it and they aren't involved anymore and they can either sit and watch the things, or, you know, you can be a nice DM, and I'm his twin brother with almost identical abilities and a similar backstory because we grew up together. I'm here to avenge him. My name's not Garth, it's Darth.
And would you be okay with that as a player? If your DM came over to you and a dragon, you tried to axe a dragon in the head, and the DM was like, the dragon runs away, would you be like, the dragons aren't supposed to do that?
No, I'm not saying like let them away with stupidity, punish them, but you know,
don't kill them,
or give them a weaker character back. You know, that's
dragon eat your hand.
Yeah.
And then flies off.
But giving them a weaker character, that's not player elimination. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I'm saying
their...
so like D&D is a game where, you know, you can eliminate someone, but, you know, at a certain point you're just going to end up with the DM and one person who's not going to win by themselves. So, you know, a good DM can use player elimination well. You know, you're punishing them for going up and hitting a dragon with a hand axe by taking away their now favorite character and replacing them with, you know, maybe a crappy sorcerer or something like that.
But that's not the same thing. That's not the same as player elimination. Player elimination is getting knocked out completely. That's just reducing their power level. So that's like giving them some sort of handicap because they did something stupid.
Yeah. So, but I mean,
that's different to player elimination.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky to know if D&D is a good example of player elimination, because in the games we talk about, you get eliminated and then you don't play anymore. But then, of course, the next game rolls around like a love letter and you can play again.
Yeah.
And so D&D is kind of the same in the fact that you probably have to not play for the rest of the session, unless your DM is really good and he knows that you're about to die and
Yeah.
has a character ready for you to go.
Yeah.
Here's Jim. He was hiding in the shadows. You can play him. Like, that usually doesn't happen. The DM is like, all right, I need to figure this out.
I don't know. I remember there being an archer that was hidden away in the back of your DM book for a while on Chris Strad.
Yeah. I did that. Well, you guys have nearly died so many times. I needed a new character, so I had Esmeralda, a dragonborn sorcerer, and a gnome barbarian, or something like that. And I was just picked 3 people. I'm like, well, they can have one of those. They're also wandering for Ophia.
But like player elimination can still be, you know, in its evolution can still be, you know, you're just reducing what you can do because you played too reckless, or you lost, or you were unfortunate, whatever it may be. You've lost your character, you've lost your abilities. The same way in the other games we were talking about, where you can, you know, you're still taking part in the game. You can't win, but you're still involved, just so you're not sitting there doing nothing at all. This is the evolution of player elimination on from Monopoly and Risk. Really giving those a bashing today.
Yeah, Kira, does the player elimination of D&D add to the fun or reduce it? You know, because as a player, you'd be annoyed that you'd have to pick one of these like stupid characters that the DM created, who's waiting in the corner, rather than your character that you have a backstory to, that you created in session 0, and you might have to kind of play this awkward character. Would that add to the excitement of like, this DM, he's already prepared these characters, so he's going to throw everything at you, and he doesn't care if you die or not. You know?
I don't think it adds to it. I don't think I'd have minded changing characters in D&D.
You're worried more about the compelling story.
I'm worried that I won't get to the end of my character, if my character is interlinked in any way, that I won't get to the bottom of that.
Yeah, so player elimination is only a very small part of the enjoyment for you.
Yeah.
It's not the biggest chunk of these games. Yeah, tricky.
But I don't play with recklessness in any point.
Brian, is there any other games that work well with player elimination?
Yeah, like, I mean, push your luck games are another good example of it. Like, you know, take Clank, for example. Clank is a great one where, you know, you're exploring the depths of the dungeon. You can race ahead, you know, you can be really brazen, you can race ahead, you can gather up a load of treasures. It gives you a much better chance of winning because you've got more points, but at the same time you're getting more Clank tokens and you've got a better chance of being caught by the dragon. You know, you can play it strategic, you can get cards that remove some of your Clank tokens and stuff like that, and you can pace your way through it. You know, maybe you won't get as high a score, but your player's not going to get eliminated. So, you know, with Push Your Luck, you essentially dictate your own how likely you are to get eliminated. So, you know, go big or go home, or like go big or get eliminated. Or, you know, maybe you get lucky and you escape with all the loot, or, you know, play it safe, play it conservative, don't get caught by the dragon, don't get eliminated. And then boom, you know, you've played the whole way through the game. So like, I think games like that where, you know, and even Betrayal on the House on the Hill as well is a bit like that, where, you know, you're exploring the mansion. You know, if you explore too deep too quickly, like I think when we played it last time, one of us dived down into the basement with someone else who turned out to be betrayer, and they were just stuck down there with them really deep in the house, but they'd explored really far before it happened. But again, if you're careful and, you know, you don't play too risky, the chances of you getting caught and eliminated are much lower. But if you really push it and, you know, you've a better chance of getting a higher score, but at the same time, better chance of getting eliminated. So, you know, it adds an element of risk to that, to the type of players who like that kind of fast, adventurous run through type of games where, you know, it's not just whoever gets there first is going to win. It's, you know, you can get there first, but there's a dragon who's annoyed at you. So, like,
yeah. Well, what do you think here about player elimination?
I like it. I think it makes the game a bit more about your choices than it is about attacking other people or getting the upper hand on other people. I think in Perudo and Clank, you're pretty much responsible for you know, whether you're going to raise or lower or call it. 9 4s.
There's only 6 dice on the table, Brian. 8 4s.
You just feel like more like it's you who has actioned. It's not about other people not liking you or liking you. It's just about you trying to figure out, how far can I get? What do I think these people are going to do? How do I think, are they going to activate whatever is going to come? Or I think that does help in player elimination games. I think it does make them better.
So you like Push Your Luck player elimination?
I don't dislike it as much as I dislike social deception games.
Okay.
I suppose in those
You
games,
know which
like,
side of the debate you're on, right?
You never ask, but how much better are worker placement games than social deduction games and player elimination games? 100 million times better, Owen.
Remember at the start where I said I was going to win this debate?
It's not
I'm
over.
feeling more
It's not
confident.
over just yet. But like, there are push your luck games that don't have player elimination. It's usually it's kind of not rare, but it's they're not a normal link. I worry when I see push your luck and player elimination that you're putting too much eggs in one basket on your go of doing stuff like in Clank. It kind of makes me not want to go down too far because I'm just worried about getting eliminated and then just the game stopping and then I have to go home.
But the game keeps going after you go home.
Okay. Don't just flip the table, no?
Yeah.
So how do you guys feel? Do you feel like eliminating a player in a push or luck game is just is fine, or is that too much?
I think that the boredom thing is still rampant. What do you do once you get eliminated? Prudo is okay. It's short. I think that makes a big difference. We've never had.
It doesn't have to be. We've seen people get eliminated pretty early in Prudo, and like aggressive people, you know.
Oh yeah, actually we have.
And
drinking. And that wasn't fun.
That's a long game sometimes.
Yeah.
I think there was loads of people. It was at a barbecue or something, wasn't it? Yeah.
But again, that's the push your luck element. If you're going to be brazen about it, you know, there's just as much chance that they would have done very well in the game, you know, because they were more brazen and maybe they didn't really understand the game. But
it wasn't fun
for them.
But you kind of felt like you were at a thing and they were there and then they didn't get to talk to them because they lost really quickly.
But like, I mean,
back to my three core points.
Well, I think the problem is with Perudo and not with Werewolf is you don't get any information after you get eliminated, right? So in Perudo, you don't get to see what other people's dice are, or you don't get to see who's doing really well.
Yeah, but you do it that like when people flip their cups, like because
but that's when everybody knows, right?
Yeah, but I don't find Perudo that bad to watch. Like you're watching, you know, you're playing this still 8 dice on the table, and someone goes 7 2s, and everyone's like, "Oh no way, there's not 7 2s." And then people flip over the cups, and there's like they're all 2s, and you're like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" Like it's still a fun game to watch. Like player elimination games nowadays. Now Perudo is quite an old game. Like I think it dates way back before Monopoly and Risk even. Yeah. But at the same time, you know, it is an evolution in itself where, you know, it's not necessarily a long game. It is a bit of a push your luck game. It's not the worst game to watch. Like you're not just sitting there watching someone debate buying a hotel on Marylebone or whatever other crap is in Monopoly.
Marylebone.
Marylebone. They're real streets. Marlborough.
No. Oh, Marylebone is a station. Build hotels on stations. It works.
As you can imagine, we haven't played Monopoly in a long time.
we played like, you know, what was that? Mario Kart Monopoly? That's pretty good.
That's good. That's a very fun one.
That's just 3 rounds and then you're done. You don't get eliminated.
Player elimination, does it?
No.
I didn't think so.
You can throw shells and stuff at each other and lose coins, but it's not.
So they pretty much ripped out the player elimination because player elimination sucks and it's a better game without it.
It's because you don't.
You just admitted that it was a better game.
That's true.
Hold on. The bar is very low for Monopoly. Like you could open a game of Monopoly and someone just comes into your house, kicks you in the nuts, closes the Monopoly game and puts it away. That would still be better than Monopoly.
Okay, well the heart, it's I don't know. Some people like it.
Yeah, and yes,
I've seen some good versions of it. You know,
Brian's defending it.
I'm not defending Monopoly. Defending a kick in the nuts over Monopoly.
Yeah, so let's talk some of the mechanics of player elimination. So some games never eliminate a player, but instead give them like a reduced set of actions. But usually it prevents them from winning, so they become in like a ghost mode kind of thing. Does this solve the problem of player elimination?
I don't think so. I think knowing you can't win just really takes the fun out of the game. Like, sure, you're still involved. I guess it means that you're not as excluded, which is a step in the right direction. But I don't think it's enough. Like, just doing actions for the sake of being involved isn't that compelling. You're not that drawn in. It just doesn't provide you with the fun of a board game the same way. And then you have the problem of like king making. I think that's not fun for the people who are playing the game, that you're influencing things. So I also think it means that game designers gives them free reign to make a player elimination game last as long as they want, because the player is still going to get to play. So technically you don't have to end it as quick, and because they're still involved in some way. But really, if you can't win and not involved, it should end. You shouldn't be like left to suffer in the game with like, oh, you have some token actions to do. Go for it. Keep yourself entertained. It's like you're a small child at some sort of grown-up party and you're like, here, just, move these cups around. It's fine. Just do it in the corner. You're not invested. It isn't as fun. And I just think it gives designers who have chosen bad game design just free reign to keep going with that.
I don't know. I think it's one of those kind of clever evolutions where, okay, yes, there can be some bad versions of it where you're kind of just sitting there and you're mildly influencing things that are happening in the game, but you're not really involved. As you said, it's not the best of designs, but at the same time, like, you can have ones that, might let you get back into the game, or that, maybe you can influence the game on the whole without being able to kingmake. Like, I'm going to go back to Monopoly, and this time I'm going to play in its favor because I've given it a bit of a bashing. Sorry, Monopoly. But say, like, when you get eliminated from Monopoly, maybe you form a committee that's able to decide taxes on the rich or something like that. Or, you're able to, say some form of committee that's able to take bribes from some players that, maybe, you let the taxes slide on my old Park Lane hotel there. And
is this like the Irish government edition?
Monopoly, but corrupt. So yeah, pretty much. But then, like, if you get enough bribes, maybe it's able to get you back into the game. Maybe you're not out. You can come back into it. It's going to be a slog to get back in, but you can do it. There are good ways of doing elimination and still being involved in the game that don't ruin it completely, but also don't make it so that you're just sitting there in the background bullying people, or you're just making token actions.
Well, what about what Ciara said about kingmaking, though? Of if you are this bribery politician in Monopoly, are you not worried that person, whoever eliminated that person, is just going to suddenly get this whole host of like bribes and stuff like that? This ghost character is going to attack them.
Yeah, kingmaking is always a tough one in player elimination games. There's no real way around it. You can have clever little things. You can make it so that losing players, aren't as big a target because they're not a threat. So the incentive to knock them out kind of goes away once you've weakened them. You need to focus on the bigger players, or they're going to focus on you. You can have good catch-up mechanisms so that, players don't, if they get beaten down or they are eliminated, that they have, ways back into it. That then they're focusing on their own game. They're focusing on doing it for themselves rather than focusing on just punishing someone else. Like, you want to incentivize the eliminated player to try and get back in rather than the eliminated player to just go and pick on whoever knocked them out. Kingmaking is a tough one, and balancing something like that is a nightmare.
Just to explain what kingmaking is.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's a good idea.
When you have decided in a game that there is no possible way of winning, you can give up trying to win and focus your attention on influencing play. So whichever player you want is going to win. So it can also be, if you're knocked out completely, that you can influence the game with the limited actions you have in a game where you have limited actions to have the player that you want to win. So you're kind of like an advocate for that player, or you're kind of using influence to do that. And yeah, just so that you know what it is.
Yeah. So like say for example, in Risk, you're losing, you're going to get knocked out, but instead of, making a move that might advance or protect you for another round or two, that you just focus your entire army on wiping out red, so that whatever bit of red you can touch is now a lot weaker. So yellow might have a better advantage against them. So it's just, and like red is the one who's beat you down, so you're just punishing them back, but you're going to get knocked out, but now they're not going to win either. Kingmaking is always a tough one in board game design. It's very hard to avoid.
Yeah, games like Perudo get around it by, you can only attack people beside you.
Yeah.
And so there's always this kind of thing which ensures that it's almost a lot of 1v1s instead of a big group team battle. And that way, kingmaking doesn't occur, because it's just about how the game flows and how you react to it.
And that's quite hard to achieve in a lot of games. Even Love Letter, if you're on the last round and somebody knows your cards, so you're going to be eliminated on your turn, you still have the power, if there's only a few people playing, that you can influence the game so that the person you want to can win. And we've even been in that same situation we play Love Letter enough that sometimes that if there's only a few people left or 3 people left, the person who knows they're going to lose has enough power with the cards that they have in their last go to influence who is going to win. So it kind of makes for that little bit of an advantage because it's kind of 2 against 1 then.
And if you have player elimination where you have this ghost character with the reduced actions, the first thing that crops into the mind is you want to keep that person engaged in the game. And so that tends to be actions that lead to kingmaking, which is the tricky one. So like, if you have Perudo, say, and the person gets eliminated, you could have them as a ghost character get to set whatever they want as their dice.
That'd be
and
cool.
Then they put it under the thing, and then they're still part of it. They can't win, but they affect the game by just going like, I want to put a 4 down or whatever, and then and see what it is. And then they can still affect the end result. And they do it before, so that's not kingmaking because they don't know who's going to pick 4. But that'd be interesting at least.
That would be pretty cool.
But is it interesting enough for it to be better than them just getting up and having a cup of tea? That's the problem because tea's pretty good. Brian, player elimination games seem to work really well with shorter game lengths. Is this just because players can only have so much patience being a spectator, like we were talking about? Or is it possible to have a player elimination game in a longer game that says where player elimination only occurs in the last 15 minutes?
Yeah, I do think the shorter games work better for player elimination or for player elimination, like Love Letter, like even Perudo. I know we said it can drag on, but the likes of Love Letter especially, if you get eliminated, it is only a minute before you're back in the game again. If you lose the round, so what, you're back in for the next round. You don't mind it so much. When they are shorter games, it's not as devastating to be knocked out because you're back into it shortly. But, if you're playing a game like Monopoly Risk, whatever it is, where it is very long and you're knocked out, even if you're knocked out halfway through the game, there's still hours left to play. And then, do you, especially if you're like at a board game night or something like that, do you get up and go and find another group to play with, even though you want to play with the people you were playing with? Do you try and squeeze in a short game and hope that they finish around the same time? Stuff like that can be difficult. So I think that's where the short games come into their element with player elimination. It's not the end of the world if you get knocked out, if you just have to wait a couple of minutes. It gives you time to go get a pint, get a cup of tea, whatever it is, and come back and play the next game. It would be kind of cool to have a game where you can only possibly be eliminated in the last kind of 10, 15 minutes of the game, just as you're in the last phase, the end game, and get eliminated there. But at the same time, what's the point in having an elimination at that stage? You're at that stage, you're in the final stages of points. Why not just do points? It would be an interesting concept and it would be kind of cool to see. But like that, it could be a game where, you're losing the whole way through and you're going to be the first eliminated. So now you're going to lose and you're going to be eliminated. It's adding just another bummer on top of it. So I think the short games work very well for that reason.
I would say the concept of player elimination in the last 15 minutes is more along the lines of something like Blood Rage or something like that. Now, Blood Rage obviously has points and has like territory control, but a game where you can eliminate players and the winner is whoever is last standing. There is no points. It's just a longer game where you're almost building up your army, you're building up your strength and powers and stuff like that. There's maybe card drafting involved, and then it's player elimination at the end. But like you can't get eliminated in round 1. Is what I'm saying. So you can't have a 40-minute game and you get straight away killed. I wish I could talk about Twilight Imperium because Twilight Imperium has a mechanism and it's also an incredibly long game.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how they deal with it. That might be something interesting to look at.
Is that 2 teams?
No, everyone has their own thing.
Okay.
Also, I don't know anything about Twilight Imperium. Okay, so
we don't know nothing. It's an enormous game that takes hours. That's as much as our
ask the question, sure. I'm going to cut that out.
Well, what I was going to say is 2-player games or 2-team games work for player elimination.
That's true.
Because...
Thanks, Kara. Good point.
It's not the same as player elimination, though, because the game ends.
Chess is 2-player.
Yeah, it's not because that's the end of the game. That's not like a player's eliminated and the game continues. I think that the player's eliminated and then the game ends because they've won. So even if it was a points game and it came to the end, it would win. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know that shorter games actually help. I think that they're the only thing that you could have. I think that longer games just don't work very well. Even in Betrayal House on the Hill, if you died early or didn't take care of your character or something out of your control happens, which often does,
who end up in the basement with the betrayer.
or something. Yeah, and you're out. Like, long games just don't work. It's interesting enough that you might stay around, but it's not fun or as fun as being in the game. So, like, it's just, there's, other than having short games, there's nothing. And things like Suro and Love Letter, they have mechanics that are designed to end it. So, like, Suro ends, so if you crash into a wall or whatever, but you're unlikely to crash into a wall until most of the cards are down. So you are that natural, like, physical space limit on the board that ends the game. So it's a great way to have a short game with player elimination that ends. And Love Letter, there's only so many cards, and once the cards run out, it ends the game. So, like, there's like the best of the player elimination games, which are still not good, are ones where it has to end in a short amount of time. Because there's somebody, the player designer or the designer of the game has put in a mechanic that just goes, and that's it. So even if you got knocked out in the first round, Love Letter isn't that enjoyable if you get knocked out in the first round and it goes on for a good few rounds, like till the deck is finished. It's still not that bad.
There's still only like 15 cards. It's not.
But imagine that happened like 6 times in a row.
Well, then stop picking obvious cards. Stop getting randomly dealt obvious cards.
One thing that kind of raises a point of is with player elimination, players don't finish the game at the same time. So if you are playing a shorter game or even a medium-sized game like Dead of Winter, people can get up and leave, especially at like a board game convention or something like that, which does mean that you don't get to have that chat at the end of the game about how it feels to play, you know? Because if you're playing Suro, the person crashes into a wall, they just get up and leave. Whereas the end people will then talk about how good of a game it was or what happened and stuff like that. So you don't really get that conversation.
Do you want feedback from someone who didn't enjoy themselves?
But you'd like to have a chat, like, oh, like even in Santorini, oh, when that person did that, and this person did it, wasn't that really good? Oh, I went around putting blue things on everything.
Everywhere.
Yeah, but the thing is, you should still be able to enjoy yourself after you get eliminated, right?
Yeah.
I think Brian said no.
Yeah, he did. Just clarify your statements. What? I said if the person gets eliminated, they'll just get up and leave, right?
Yeah.
And you said that's because they're not enjoying themselves because they just got eliminated.
I didn't say that.
You did.
Well, thank God there's no audio recording of this. It could possibly prove me wrong,
but yeah, no, it's just something that popped into my head that you don't get that atmosphere of everyone finishing the game at the same time, and so they all immediately talk about how good the game was or what happened during the game.
Yeah.
Because they just have to sit there for 5 minutes.
I don't know. I still think, don't get me wrong, I don't think every game should have player elimination. I don't think every game needs player elimination. There are games that have it, that don't need it, and there's games that could benefit from it. But it adds an element of, like, fear is the wrong word, but like, a bit of intensity where you're like, oh, I don't want to get knocked out, or oh, I don't want to get knocked out before them, or something like that, or and people are being very clever with it. Like there's good use of player elimination in a lot of games these days. Yes, there are going to be bad ones, but there's bad everything. There's loads of bad games that don't have player elimination. But if it's done well, if it's used well, it's not the same boring monotony that it used to be. Now, it's short, it's fun, it's different. You still want to watch the game. There's always something to it now. Or I think there are more games like it, and I think it is still an evolving mechanic.
Okay, cool. One last pitch on player elimination, but I think we should wrap it up there, and we're going to go on to the final thoughts of player elimination. We're going to start with Kira. So you were against player elimination. Remember this? What are your final thoughts?
As part of our game group, I do have to play a lot of player elimination. So I appreciate that there's a lot of reasonably good games in player elimination. I just don't think they have anything on other styles of game. I don't think there's as much chatter or gameplay as in a worker placement game or in a resource gathering or even something like Dixit and stuff where it's a social game of just like guessing, but there's no elimination. I think those games are just a little more exciting. And I just don't see that player elimination has that much of an advantage. There's other ways to get that intensity. And I think that groups of players can really underestimate how much more personal some of the players can be in a game with player elimination. How much more like it's about attacking a player to get rid of them and how easily it becomes like that. But I guess that's more about how the game is designed, and also finding a good balance in your game group so that you're in a good safe space and you're comfortable enough that people aren't actually going to be bullying you. But with strangers, you can't control that, or if you're just at a game convention or something like that, and then it can get just a bit too personal too quickly. I just think there's too much chance of that in social deception.
Yeah, good, great final thoughts there on the pros and cons of player elimination. Brian, do you have any final thoughts?
I think I've said a lot of this throughout it. Player elimination is an evolving mechanic. It's come into its own a lot recently. It's not the old games where you're sitting 4 hours watching your friends play a game that you can't be involved in anymore. Designers are using it very strategically to enhance, social deception games, to enhance short little games, to even push your luck games to, mitigate that player who's just going to go on a mad run through the whole game. It helps slow all that down. It's a very good balancing mechanic, and it adds a little bit of excitement to a game as well, especially when, you can still be involved, whether you're playing your little ghost actions afterwards or whether you're just invested in watching how it plays out. I think it has changed a lot, and I think opinions towards it are still a bit harsh because people still have this, everyone has their memories of sitting there playing a game, really enjoying themselves, getting knocked out and then going, now I'm bored watching you. So everyone has those memories and they don't like it. And I understand why, but at the same time, it is a good mechanic if it's used well. And I think for designers who are putting it in there and they're putting it in there in a clever way, or they're wrapping up the game quickly afterwards, or they're letting players be involved, it's a very good mechanic to have in. And I would hate to see it just blanket removed because it does benefit a lot of games. So I'm keen to see where it keeps going, because I think, with the right balancing and the right use of it, it could be a very good addition to a lot of games. Oh, also one more, that if you are playing a game that has a long wait time and you get eliminated early, flip the board, hide behind your chair, suggest something else. Boom, done.
Talking about Monopoly again, aren't you? Or Risk.
I was trying to avoid mentioning them, but yes. Oh no, I fell over on the table. Oh, we'll never know where everyone was. Anyone want to play Perudo?
Yeah, lots of great opinions, I think, on player elimination. Lots to think about and to learn about player elimination. I hope everyone listening to this learned a lot more about player elimination, especially if you're considering adding it to your game or even to looking into it more. Did your opinion change on player elimination? Does it make you want to play an elimination board game? If you enjoyed this debate, share it. We've been decking out some games. Thanks for listening. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.